Welcome back to Wedding Mayhem, your wedding channel for all things wedding. And we've got Kimberly from Little Wedding Creche with me. Have I said that right?
Yeah. First time.
Because I'm thinking forward and I'm like thinking, oh my God, what's her name? What's her name? So you've been on before?
Yes, I'm so excited to be back. Lovely.
Yeah, it wasn't a joke.
No, I know. I was like, have you got the right person? But yeah, I'm happy to be here.
You're back because
so back.
You know your game.
Thank you.
You know, you're in, your industry, and we learned so much from you.
Good.
When you were in, and we're mums.
Yeah.
That were, Lauren was on here. Oh, obviously I was on here. I'm not leaving.
No, you're still on here.
So we were like, oh my God. So when you came in, you're like, no, this. And I had so many mums message me, brides, going, thank you for that. Because I would never have thought to ask those questions at the venue.
Good.
So you're our expert regarding little ones.
Yeah.
And it's Happy New Year. Woo!
Wow, exciting.
How is it? Another year. Another year. So it's 2026. So I'm 25.
25 years old.
I wish I was 25 years old. The business is 25 years.
Amazing.
But this year for me has literally...
It's flown.
Yeah. It has been absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
It's just mad how it's suddenly come round. And we're never prepared.
I know. Even when I'm getting bookings in and they're saying 2027, I'm like, oh, that date feels...
I've done a 28 wedding.
I know, it's crazy, isn't it? Yeah,
but not too crazy because we're 18 months.
No, it's great, but I'm also in my head, I'm like, I don't know where I'm going to be in that amount of time. But I'm like, that will come, it's like that.
Yeah. And I think weddings are being planned either very last minute or the 12 to 18 months in advance because they're saving money because we are,
agreed.
Hopefully 2026 we're coming out of that recession, but money is tighter.
Yes.
And I'm finding in my industry that brides are not paying for themselves. It's coming down through the family some ways, or it's coming out of savings that so they're holding tighter onto it until they make the right decision. But it's taking them longer to make that right decision because they don't want to get it wrong.
Yes.
But the reason why we're going to do this because New Year is a new law, hopefully, is going to come in. And it got me thinking that, obviously, if they do legalise celebrant-led weddings, that obviously we can get married anywhere. So there's going to be more freedom. Yeah. But hand in hand will come new regulations on health and safety and all that sort of stuff, and definitely for your industry as well. But... we just talked about weddings being so far in advance being booked. Yeah. So they're booking in today's regulations and what the venue have said that they're going to do and what their regulations are letting them do. But things can change.
Yes.
So we're going to go through a few things about what to look for and what to check. Because what you've now booked may not be exactly the same or can be the same because laws changed.
Absolutely,
So what are you finding in your industry?
I think it's about keeping your finger on the pulse because things are changing all the time. And actually individually outside of any like legal legislations that you're seeing, actually individual venues sometimes have their own inbuilt restrictions as well. So
like what?
So things like, okay, so for example, maybe more tailored to what we do, we'll find, okay, so you've got a few different venues. So we work across a large amount of luxury venues, like your top 5 stars in London, some, internationally, big manor houses, Surrey, Essex. It would be really different to the sort of thing that we can do in one versus another. So let's just say you've got one of your top 5 in London and we're talking about, some of the big top 5s, your Claridge's, your Rosewood, Landmark, all these sort of places. They will have, or even things like the Queen's House and, in Greenwich. Because of the manner and the type of building they have particular restrictions. Yeah. So things like for us, of course, we're bringing in, kids activities. Yeah. Sometimes even, we don't just cater for the really small babies, we cater for right up into kind of teenagers. Often in a wedding we did last weekend, we actually had 4 of the groomsmen in our room playing the Nintendo Switch. So
you're catering for the big babies.
Yeah, exactly. So let's just say we've got, a handful of toddlers, handful of babies, handful of teenagers, and we've created like a kind of, let's call it a play experience. We might have kind of soft play for the really small ones, And then, but for the older ones, we could have things like big arcade machines, those kind of punch things, snooker tables. So
you must have a very big van.
We outsource.
Okay.
And we outsource that.
Yeah.
We outsource. So things like these, the big built-in soft play, we would outsource that sort of stuff. But let's just say somewhere that's got is quite luxury. Let's just say they have, or really old buildings. They have old tapestries and that sort of stuff. So anything like messy play, paints, balls, obviously.
Paintballing.
Yeah. Paintballing is a no. So, we have to have a hardcore restriction. Yeah. But then we could go somewhere to another venue and it's just a free-for-all. So we can
But then
play it by ear.
That can change. So it might be that in the time that you've booked your venue to getting married, they may well be now the new home of all those tapestries because it's moved from hotel to hotel, say, on an exhibition.
Yeah.
So, how can we check these things and how can we stipulate that we don't want those things to...
Well, I guess it's individual to each. Everybody has their own lead time and people, like you said earlier, some couples book. They could be, I literally can have a booking that would be in 2 weeks' time for the nature of what we do, because the aspect of what we do, either it's really, really important to someone or it's a real last minute panic thought and they're like, oh my God, I totally forgot about little Tommy. Who's going to watch over him? I don't want to do that job. Yeah. And we don't want mum-in-law to do that. We don't want sister to do that because, of course, they're part of the bridal party. Yeah. They're main people. Or they kind of think, well, actually, we want the kids actually to actually do something, and then sideline to that, we want the parents to be able to enjoy themselves. Everyone knows as a mum, it's nice, or a dad, or just, parents in general, carers, it's really nice to have experiences with your kids. I love my kids. I work with children. It's a vibe. But there are moments when you want to have a chat and you want to eat a hot meal. So when your kids are there, it's lovely. You can get the pictures. But often it's a secondary job. When you're going out socially, you also want to enjoy yourself, you know? So I think everybody's, the way that they can check these things on the lead up, it would be really dependent on what it looks like for them in terms of their processes. So for us, like I said, we get we could have a 2-week lead time. We could have an 18-month lead time. Sometimes the shorter lead times are better because let's just say somebody books us
You don't miss anything when it's short.
No, and this is the thing. If somebody books us now, early 26, but their wedding is summer 27, in that time, what's happening at the building? They might have building works. They might have this going on. They've got change of management, change of event team.
We want to talk about the change of management, so we'll come back to that if that's okay.
So it's one of those things where you can literally say like, oh, okay, so we would do a risk. So we'd get the basic info. But and again, with our service, someone books in early 27. They're like, I've got 10 kids. In that time, and I've already got this pre-written in my kind of send out. It says, this is based on the number as is. However, in this time, you might have a little surprise. And that could come from anywhere, because it takes 9, 10 months, doesn't it?
And I've had it at the weekend, actually, with my bride, so we just allow bride's children. Right. But we made...
You're brave in your shop.
Yeah, but we to be honest with you, most of our brides want to have that time on their own. They normally will leave. It's very, very rare. It's normally, a newborn that they just can't leave and stuff like that. So, but we then say, yes, children allowed. Then we've got friends that are just bringing, all their kids and it's chaotic. It's chaotic for the bride. It's always about the bride.
Yes.
But we had it the weekend and, bride put on there, my sister is bringing her, I think it was 4 or 5, I can't remember.
Tricky age.
Is this okay? And actually, on the day that she was coming in, it was during the week, so we're like, that's fine. It's close relative, it's sister. So if it was Saturday, it would have been a no because it's just really busy. Yeah. And it's too much for the kids. Yeah. And that was it. So that's all so we said yes, no problem. We then got a phone call, I think a couple of days before, from the sister to say, look, my sister probably hasn't said this, but, their child had special needs and was very much on the spectrum. So she said, is it still okay for me to bring them because they can shout? and they're not good at sitting down and stuff like that. And can I bring so and so? So she already had a plan in place, but it was really kind that she actually gave permission, asked for permission, because had we not known,
you couldn't have accommodated whatever.
No, so
scenario.
we made sure that we got like 2-seater sofas on one side. We only needed one sofa, so we actually took one of them out so we could prepare for that visit. So it gave him space, and they bought like a little crash mat and stuff like that, and stuff. So we set up like a little play centre, and the appointment went swimmingly. Bride found her dress. She had such a fantastic time. But had we not known,
you wouldn't have been able to.
And that's the same with you, isn't it? Suddenly being plonked then.
I often, and this comes from a childcare background. We were talking earlier about when I was saying about some of the changes, and with my team, I've got a huge amount of people on my team, but I have a core team of 30 in London, all of which have been with me from the very beginning. They know the events industry very well. They know their childcare areas very well. We've got specialised people in SEN, play therapy.
What is SEN?
Special educational needs.
Okay.
So that when you mentioned there, so autistic, ADHD, we've got people that are trained. So we often, and I like to do this whenever we have a situation, because I know that it's not singular to one person. So we did a wedding beginning of this year, and the bride was really, really anxious because her youngest son had type 2 diabetes. So he basically had a monitor. Wow. And she said, normally we kind of feed him, and if his insulin goes down, he has this and that. And as soon as I spoke to her, because our team have experience in this sort of field, we know how to track this and to give him the orange juice. And because I'd already said to her, this is what I would suggest, immediately she came back and said, you made me feel really, really happy, secure in that. And then we would put somebody, one-to-one and ensure that they could cover that. Now, if that was somebody that was just kind of brought in from an agency or a friend of a friend, they may not be able to cope in a situation. Yeah. And
so we should be then, obviously not everybody is lucky enough to book you, and if they have booked somebody else or have got mates to look after children, it's just important that the couple put in force who's what.
But I think the difficulty is, and the more and more we work in the industry and work with events, like I said, I've been in childcare and events for a long time, but a lot of it was around entertainment for kids, creating lovely birthday parties. When I moved into the wedding industry, and this is what I mean about the staff being core staff, is because childcare is childcare in a nursery setting, in a school setting, that sort of stuff. But in an event setting,
how is it different?
It's so different because you've got the space isn't necessarily child safe. It's because it's a beautiful wedding venue.
Well, some of them are really old, aren't they?
Really
Hampton
old.
Court Palace.
Exactly. Yeah. So we're at Hampton Court all the time. So we're recommended with Hampton Court. Now, one of the reasons we're there all the time is because we're talking about restrictions. The Great Hall, which is, where King Henry VIII used to eat his food and stuff, there is a restriction that under 12s cannot eat there. So anybody that's getting married at Hampton Court...
Why is that?
I think it's just because of the nature of the space. It's like a grand, old, protected building. Yeah. And I guess kids throwing around peas is not the vibe,
I throw around peas.
Yeah, I mean, you can probably have people throwing around peas, but so that is an actual legal requirement at the palace, and actually some of the other palaces. So we work with the historical palaces quite a lot. So anyone that's booking at Hampton Court, we will get so many requests saying, and I know what they're going to say. Kids under 12 can't go in. So often they'll go into the Great Hall. We're in. Often sometimes still in the palace, and then it kind of closes at 9 and 10 and you move over to the garden room. But what's really cool about doing something like that is, again, that's such a individual venue where you've got all the guests in this amazing great hall. You've got the couple basically sitting where Henry VIII used to sit, and all of this huge banqueting hall. Yeah. And then we're down in the kitchens, in the kind of slave quarters.
Are you in the proper kitchen where the ovens are?
Yeah, or we can be in any space, or we've got the family room. I've worked in so many various venues in Hampton Court. And again, every wedding's different. One might be a one-to-one, one might be 30 kids, one might be 12 kids, one might be 5 babies, 2 children with SEN and then 2 teenagers. So we have to make sure we cater for this and this. But in a venue like that, what's awesome is that effectively it's like a kind of school day out. It's like a field trip.
Yeah.
They're in Hampton Court and we can literally be like, oh, let's have a look around here, have a look around there. Actually, sometimes I actually got locked in. I was going from one space to the other. And of course it closes at 5 to the public, right?
Yeah.
So parents are up there, kids are up, my staff and team are there. I've gone to do something and then I've got come back and I've got completely lost. And at that point, I was like genuinely like, oh my God, the ghost of Anne Boleyn is following me. I'm like, what's going on? I was seriously freaking out. I'm obsessed with the Tudors anyway.
I don't
but
think
I was
she
like,
lived at Hampton Court Palace.
I don't know. I thought that was the thing. Well, either way, I was freaked out. So I was like, oh my God, am I going to find my way back? But so many cool things. But this, and then where did we do recently?
You're walking down the corridor with that head.
Yeah, I know, literally. Where did we do? Oh, the Royal Navy College. Again, another really cool venue. So that, again, restriction. So you've got this grand building. It is insane. You go and it's jaw-dropping, and they often put us in the kind of side. I think it's called the Vault, and it's a room. It's a kind of a room down from the main thing. We're in there, but then again, after dark, closes to the public. Weddings happening, parents are boogieing. We're in that little thing, and then if you kind of explore that, you've got the kind of 18th century old bowling alley. You've got these crazy alleyways. So
minefield for somebody looking after children.
Yeah. No, it's fun if you've got the right experience and you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, minefield if one of them gets lost, but of course that's why you put in place restrictions and risk assessments.
What I'm hearing is that it's just really important that you have somebody that knows the venue, because if you just get somebody to turn up who's never even been to that venue, then they have no idea of those restrictions.
And that's why we often do pre-visits, always. If we've not been to a venue before, we'll always do a pre-visit.
Right.
This can sometimes become quite hard. We did a kind of ready-made, I think I mentioned it last time I was on the show when we did a kind of event in the middle of the desert. We had this international event in Marrakesh. We had to set up a kind of...
This is where you had the penguins?
No, this was not penguins in the desert. That was a different one.
You have to go back and watch your episode about the penguins.
We've had penguins and we've had the desert. So this was in the desert. So you've got to imagine when we've done the pre-visit to Marrakesh and we've gone there, I've rocked up and all the planners and AVs there, they're looking at structures and I'm just looking at sand for miles, as far as the eye can see. And I just thought to myself, this is a really serious risk. Like, this is a really serious, I don't know how can you safeguard in the middle of the desert? So when
are you like a bodyguard to go in and see what dangers
often
are?
Sometimes it feels like that, particularly. And one of the things we kind of make a joke with families and parents when we come around, because we always say, our services are different throughout, but we often, the most popular time is supporting through the wedding breakfast. So often we can have 2 options. We can eat separately, come with the creche or work the caterers, or they sit in and amongst parents, or they sit on their own kids' table. Often when they're sat with parents, so they've had the reception drinks, we've done a nice meet and greet, soft launch, say hello to the kids, told them that there's a really fun room. So when, they've eaten, they're going to come. And then we kind of stand back. And then often it does look like we're weird, kind of like bodyguards standing there. So I always say, look, we're going to pop out, we'll pop back in. And then again, I get a timeline before. I know when speeches are happening at the beginning, in the middle, all that sort of stuff. So then we can make sure we're there to whip them away and that sort of stuff. So it's all these kind of pre-checks you have to do, I think.
Yeah, and my thought again is re-checking in, making sure that things are still the same as when you book them. When you're in a multi-use venue, so you were talking about, Hampton Court closing at a certain time, and that's it, general public have gone. But if we're in these hotels that have got other functions going on, sometimes a second wedding going on, which needs to stop.
Yeah, I just see this all the time, actually. Yeah. Lots of venues.
Then you've got people wandering all over the place. How difficult?
Well, we've been, absolutely. And then we've been in venues before where, again, when I was mentioning earlier, I think when we was chatting and I was saying that we've got kind of 3 different couples and bookings. We kind of have the one that's booked really far ahead and they really, childcare's a focus. We have the people that book quite late and they're thinking, oh my God, what are we going to do? And then the people that are like, we want a mix of both. We want the kids to be entertained, we want the parents to have a good time. So they'll think about, some people that are booking us will really think about the space that we're going to be in. We have done bookings before where we've literally rocked up and we've been in a room that's not very big, but it's also the supplier eating room. It's where they're storing stuff.
People coming back and forth.
Backwards and forwards.
Doors being left open.
Doors being left. We went to, oh my God, we did a wedding once. Where was it? It was at a very, very, very expensive hotel, actually.
How very expensive?
Oh, very expensive, very new. Where basically we're in a room. The room was beautiful, but for some reason they decided to put the 40 catering team at the back of the room to staff brief. So we're there setting up, and it was a big setup. It was candy carts, bouncy castle. It wasn't just like we're in the corner with a couple of toys. It was a full-on...
You're not sitting around in a circle singing.
Yeah, it was a full-on setup. They even had a cinema, a private cinema, which we'd factored in. We're going to take the kids up there at this point. But what happened when I rocked up, which I didn't realise on the site visit because we'd kind of just done a walk around, was that the doors that we go into were revolving doors. So what happened was any time anybody walked from wherever, cloakroom toilet, into the main ballroom, the doors were like, and then it was, so I actually had to take 2 staff out of ratio and position them by the door, because nature of children, particularly when they're at a space where they know mum and dad's there, they're like, oh, I'm just going to see my mum. Mm-hmm. And for example, if you're a teacher in school, you're the authority. If you're in a space where we basically are kind of somewhere in the middle, we're not your kind of teachers. But so if your mum and dad are there, they're like, well, mum and dad's calls the shots. So if so it's I think sometimes it's hard for kids to comprehend, because they're like, well, hold on a minute, you're the boss of me because my mum's here, she's the boss of me. But
also when you're at school, it takes at least a term to get that teacher pupil boundary. So how do you manage? I
suppose it depends what teacher it is, really.
I suppose.
And Mrs. Trunchbull.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But how do you manage that?
Look, my vibe is this. I'm that mum that never let her child cry. You know when people do the cry method?
Yeah.
That's not me. My thing is, I'm like your best friend, Bing Boss. I'm just in, and for me, it's all about
distraction.
Fun. It's about fun, distraction, and I think, and this is why my team. And if you look at some of the reviews that we've written, like the couples and planners, they will mention some of the people by name. Some of my team. That I think with childcare, and it's like with sales, it's like, there's these sort of jobs. It's like, if you've got it, you've got it. You've got that kind of thing. Yeah. And I think with childcare, if you've got that vibe, anyone that's got boys anywhere between the ages of 4 and 12 at the moment will know what I mean if I go 6, 7, because it's a massive craze. That's all boys are saying. Yeah. So I think it's a kind of having that, maybe it's just being internally a bit immature or something, I don't know, but I think you just have that thing.
But I do, I have my grandson, once a week, and if something happens and they're not real tears, and I'll be like, I'm like, what are you doing? Yeah. And he'll just look, and then he'll start laughing, and then we're back in the game, but obviously, if he's bawling his eyes out for a reason, then, it's different, but it's that distraction. But you're not just doing one-on-one, you're doing it.
We're doing multiple. And I actually think sometimes I have nannies we do one-to-one sits, and often, and again, it's a very, very different client that wants a one-to-one sit to somebody that has got 40, 50 children coming. The one-to-one sit is very much about, like you're saying with the bridal shop, it's often more about the bride and the couple than it is about the baby, because, and again, there's this kind of sweet spot age. Any child, unless they've got, colic, or it depends really where they are in their progression, because, like people say, don't work with dogs and pets and, animals and kids. It's like with children, pretty much to any age really, they go through stuff. Like babies have these regressions, toddlers have these, these periods, but more often than not, you can tell how a little one is going to be generally by the parents. Yeah. Often, you hear that phrase, helicopter mum or helicopter mum. It's sometimes, and we sometimes have couples that come in, and I've actually recently put this on my top tips as a thing, because it happens quite often, is parents come in and then they'll say, oh, I've not left Sammy with anyone before.
Yeah. I was the mum that would just like leave him there.
Bye.
And then bye. And Matt would do the same. I wouldn't get bye.
I'm that mum as well, because my kids have kind of been brought up really socially, but we have some parents that come and say, I've never left Sammy anywhere. don't know if it's going to be okay. Sammy's over there playing, hasn't given them a second thought. Absolutely. And then mum will be like, Sammy, we're going now.
Right,
and I'm like, that's the worst thing you can do, because if you're then going to say to the child, we're going, then they're going to be like, what, don't go.
Yeah, no, I get it. So obviously people who are watching this are planning their wedding with children. What are the regulations that you have to abide with?
Well, if I'm going to be honest, there effectively aren't any legal regulations.
No way.
Well, if you're in a school or if you're in a nursery or if you're wherever, then absolutely, of course there's regulations. But in terms of somebody going to a venue and having childcare, you could literally ask, your next door neighbour's teenage daughter to come.
Oh my God.
Yeah, of course. However, any venue or planner or business, if they are going to somebody and they find somebody online like myself or any other person, there's the things that you should look out for is that one, you ask for the ratio, because even though...
What is the ratio?
So in terms of, when you go to a school, there's different ratios. Okay. So in a nursery, you'd have a kind of 0, 1, 2, 3 babies.
Okay,
and so on.
To the persons. Okay.
As it gets older. SEN, special educational needs, might be a 1-to-1, depending on the need. Medical, again, depending on the need. So ideally, whoever is doing the thing that you want them to do, you need to make sure that ideally they're qualified, they've got experience. Again, they don't have to be, because let's just say, say it's Sam and John are getting married and they've got two 8-year-old boys. They might have a next door neighbour who gets on really well with their 18-year-old friend. So he could come to the wedding and keep them entertained. There's no legal requirements in a sense. But if you're having a full-on kind of help in terms of having childcare, absolutely insurance. 10 million ideally is the minimum in terms of public liability and that sort of thing.
So would couples, I would think couples would assume that the venue would cover that. Is that not the case?
No, because I think any supplier that's coming into a venue...
Yeah, so these are things that you need to know.
Yeah, so any supplier that's coming into a venue, whether it be a florist, a childcare, caterers, all hold their own insurance and public liability.
So couples need to be asking for every supplier's liability.
Ideally, if a supplier's really good, the couple shouldn't have to ask. The supplier should say, can I have your contact at the venue? Can I have your planner? And they should take that stress off you.
Right, okay.
So we do that very early on. As soon as somebody's booked us, we say, okay, brilliant, your date's held.
Yeah, but you're relying on a third party to do that. But if something was to happen to that child, the fault will come back to the couple, not the venue.
Well, look.
Depending on the nature of the accident.
Right, so let's just say this. I mean, we've been lucky, touch wood, in the sense that we've not, the nature of children, they can look at something and bump into it. Do you know what I mean? But in terms of an accident, I suppose it's any similar to any guest walking through and slipping on something and there's a wet floor. So any sort of liable claim can come back to anyone.
Just supposing that the child it's not the fault of the venue.
Yep.
But, in the care of, the next door neighbour's daughter, being the childcare looking after.
Yeah.
If the child choked on something.
Oh, God.
Whose responsibility is that? Who's liable?
In that case, if it was a friend of a friend and it wasn't something that was legitimately put in place, I don't really know whether the responsibility would lie effectively. It would lie on the person that's looking after them. But effectively, if that's a family friend, you're not going to be like, right, I'm taking you to court.
Well, you say that.
But you say about choking, this is one of the things, and I've done so many...
We're meaning business now.
No, I'm really passionate about this because I've seen this happen. And often I think to myself, and I've looked at staff and I've been like, whoa. Because that's when, and because we've been there, and I thought I might have mentioned this on the last show, but we have been in scenarios before where, so when I say about kids in weddings are kind of an afterthought, I get it. The couple are the main people, that's the vibe. However, if you are having children, it's really important that certain things are covered, and particularly food. I've seen this happen so many times where The main wedding breakfast is lovely. It's beef Wellington. It's all the things, and the kids is just they're having fish and chips or whatever's easy.
Turkey dinosaurs.
Yeah, whatever's easiest. But when the canapes go around, one, they're not child friendly, so they're starving, they're getting really hungry, and it's all. And then on some occasions, we've seen them sit for starters. Parents are having their lovely starters. Kids have just been given a couple of breadsticks and grapes or whatever, blueberries, and they can basically, if the grapes aren't cut because of the nature of the way that grapes are.
Do you have to cut them in a particular way?
No, but they just need to be cut, because if you've got to think about it, a grape like that, a blueberry like that in a child
Somebody
anywhere.
was telling me the grape had to be cut lengthways, not acrossways.
Ideally.
Because then that lengthways can get stuck.
Yeah, so ideally you want to cut them at least once, ideally 4 times. And I get it, caterers are under stress.
I was asking on my behalf.
Oh, right, in case you don't.
Tuesdays.
Yeah. So the thing is, and we've actually been in a wedding before, again, very, very prestigious venue and very, very expensive caterers, big caterers. And we've seen, so we've got kids on the table here. And so smaller kids have been kind of popped inside of parents. And at this point, we would generally, step on out, because we don't want to be weird and creepy hanging around behind them eating.
Yeah. And also this might be your little break as well.
Yeah, but on this occasion, we could tell the vibe was just a bit manic, and kids had sat down there. Well, they didn't have the right high chair, so we're there trying to help out. And then caterers have come down. They generally put the kids down food first. On this occasion, they kind of put it all together, and then they've put it all down. I think things were running over a bit, so everyone's starving. The food's gone down, and then
the staff coming in to serve are probably agency.
Yeah, absolutely, of course.
So
and they're not
know.
really. I mean, they're sometimes really good on allergies and that sort of stuff. But again, this is all information we'll get before, even if we're not overseeing it. We'll say, are there any allergies? So we can work alongside caterers. But on this occasion, they popped the plate down. Before you could even blink, this child has picked up, put the grape in mouth, and I'm talking 30 seconds, was was choking. So my staff grabbed her, pulled her out, before even any of the parents had even noticed. But this is what I mean about, it goes from just being a fun event and something that is really innocent to, something that could be quite life-threatening. So I think sometimes, and when people say, look, and every job in a wedding is really important, but if a vase of flowers falls over, you can kind of clean it up and get over it. If a kid falls downstairs and breaks their arm and leg, or even worse, it's kind of a not getting over situation. So it's about translating that, really.
Yeah, no, I get it. But again, the liability insurance for me, I think, is important.
But look, you can have a piece of paper that says liability insurance, but you need to do more than that.
But what that does tell me, what that tells me is that they've at least gone that extra mile.
Yeah.
Because it is a low bar entry, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anybody could just do it.
Yeah.
They don't have to be qualified.
Oh, I guess.
But if they've gone as far as getting insurance, they've paid for it. It's not free, unless they faked it. But at least we're a little bit closer to the low bar of entry.
Yeah.
To being professional.
And then, of course, there's the outside stuff, also like the DBS check, so your disclosure barring service.
We need to be asking to see those.
Yeah, and not necessarily see them. So all of my staff are on what's called the update service. And a lot of people, police force, travel, wherever you work, taxi drivers even, they should be on what's called the update system. So you get your first certificate, then you register, I think you pay a certain amount a year. So I have a subscription for all of my staff. And that gets updated every year. So that way you're not reapplying and waiting. And that would be ideally, I think the legal requirement is that you have the certificate number.
Yeah.
And again, because all of my staff are on my staff and I know them all very well, they update and we have the certificate numbers.
Yeah. So you could give that to a
client. But you'd be surprised how many people don't ask for it.
Well, this is why we're doing this. So again, write this on your list. Ask for that. Can they go on a website and check that they are?
Yes.
Yeah,
so if they're going to check the update, so either you want to see a printed certificate, and this is the thing, people could have printed certificates from 2021, 2018.
We've got AI fully in our lives, 2026, God knows what's happening.
Ideally, if you're booking anything that is related to your child, you need to trust. And no shortcut. And because you don't ever want to put yourself or your child in a position where their safety is compromised.
We all do it. We all, after anything that's happened in our life, I wish I did that. I wish I knew that. And it's so important to do this. But in the hectic planning of life and wedding planning, these things get forgotten.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, like I'm a mum 2 boys, and often if I want to go out for a meal with the girls or whatever, and I'm thinking, oh, I need childcare. And then you think about going out for a meal, you're going to get a nice bottle of wine and a meal, so it's going to cost you X. And then you think about having a childcare or somebody coming in to nanny, and you've got to get ready. So you're going to go out till 8. And if it's a fun night, you'll be out till, what time?
It's your transport home.
And then it's your transport home. So then you've got to think about, right, so that's £15 an hour times whatever. It adds another 70, 80, 90 quid onto your night. So I get why people are like, oh, and often people want to leave them with family and that sort of stuff. But I think on an event, when you've planned so much for your event, why compromise on that one thing?
I hear it afterwards when brides come back and tell me about it, and they'll go, we didn't have anybody to look after the children because, my auntie was going to take them all home and babysit them, but then auntie got absolutely shit-faced. And then completely forgot that she was going home, and then ended up, saying that she was going home in a taxi and actually went home on her own, forgot the kids.
I've seen that before.
And it was old school, put the kids
on the two chairs. Two chairs.
The 2 chairs put together with coats over the top of them. And, they had to make do, but,
And often the guests and the couple, they're having a good time or they're not because little one's having a meltdown. And we know what it feels like as parents when your little one is in, it's that scene, isn't it, in the supermarket saying, I want nothing. And they're, crashing down, rolling around on the floor. But when you're in that moment where, and I think as well, people are so emotionally invested, not even just a couple, mother-in-law, everyone's so invested in this day that even just something small going wrong can really just put a dampener on things,
Well, a small thing is magnified, I think, at a wedding, and it's hard. What can suppliers be doing differently that they did this year that they need to be doing next year?
I think all suppliers, and you'll feel this in the industry, have to continue to innovate and do things differently. I think the way that you show up, even just on social media, the way that you're putting your message out, even just the way you're working alongside other suppliers, I think there's just a change generally, isn't there, in the air with things like, people talking about the cost of living and restriction and everything just ebbs and flows, and you kind of just need to keep on keeping on.
Keep on top of obviously regulations and laws and stuff like that. And, like we've talked at the beginning about, hopefully, I think there's going to be a massive shake-up next year in weddings, law and in, actual weddings itself regarding, and I think the celebrants are going to lead the way. Yeah.
And that's probably great news for them because, if you're thinking you've been kind of restricted to this. And also, I know some great celebrants that we've worked on. I think a couple have been on the show. And the thing that they do, it's often, it comes from a place of...
From the heart.
Yes, literally. And they write these love stories and all this sort of thing.
And it is a love story.
Yeah.
Cheesy as it is
so I think for them, it kind of must feel a bit like, oh, it's unfair, isn't it? Like, oh, we, to be recognised. So this is going to be, and I think a great move, really.
I do. And I think also it will shake up the industry on a whole, because I think, I will probably have to do things differently. My dresses need to be different to adapt for the different locations. Yeah. So I think we're going to see multifaceted areas where we're getting married. I think, be prepared for the unknown, I think. Yeah. We're going to see you in tree houses, I think. And stuff like that, because hopefully people will be able to get married anywhere they want.
And it's interesting, isn't it, on then how that will change the landscape of everyone as a whole involved,
And venues, venues I think do need to step up a little bit. And we talked about Kelly. She's in tomorrow.
Love Kelly.
I live here at the moment. And it's retraining. A good supplier will continue to train themselves.
Well, that is Kelly's absolute genius skill. Like, she knows she can go in and be like, that's, she's got this eye, that's in the wrong place. And again, it's about that experience and educating. Like, you can probably see a dress because that's your thing and be like, oh, that's funny, the beading's off there, or the strap. And then, like, when we go into childcare, my childcare stuff, often 0, sort of 1 to 5, my team, we can spot if we believe there is an SEN need. And often parents, first time mums, and they haven't been diagnosed in the school, they won't know. And of course, so they haven't put it on the film, but immediately we can tell just by sensory, the way they talk, the way they move, the way they listen.
Yeah.
And we can say, that is low-lying X.
Yeah.
But of course you can't, then it's a sensitive subject. You can't go around.
It is actually, isn't it? Because, you know, like I've not officially been diagnosed, but everybody comes on my sofa and goes, yeah, you definitely got it. I did
ADHD.
I did a bit inspection for a new site yesterday, and we just got talking, and she said, oh my God, you do so many things. And I said, yeah, I think I've got ADHD. She said, oh, you definitely have. She said, I've got it. I can spot them a mile away. And but if somebody is, you know, and I think it's a positive thing.
I think it's a superpower.
It's not changed my life. For me, it makes me understand why I do things, and now, so I'm quite comfortable with it. But if you get somebody who is embracing it, who's not happy and doesn't believe that they are, but their child also is presenting the same way, you can't turn around.
No, and also again, this is where the event childcare thing is different. It's not your place, principle right. Is it morally right? And also you have to kind of and also look, when my second son was born, my first son was speaking, holding bottles by, he was like 6 months, he was doing stuff. But as you can tell, I talk a lot, my partner talks a lot. When my second son was born, he wasn't there, and he was saying things like door wash and stuff like that. And then immediately I was like, oh, we've got to get him a hearing check. We checked him for glue it, all of that. And it basically, now he just constantly, he's, you know, constantly talking. But what we realised was that, I think we didn't give him the space to talk. And because Rafi, my oldest son, spoke so much, there was no time. We were like, oh, poor Phoenix. So, but now he's fine. But I did, you know, again, coming from a childcare background. Really, no, but we realised that afterwards, like, oh, poor Phoenix, he just didn't actually have the time.
Shoehorn a word in.
No, literally, everyone was finishing his sentences. But again, so you've just got to allow that child the progression to grow. But it's like having... like I said, with dresses, you're probably like, and Kelly's, you can see stuff with venues, but and even people new coming into the industry. I have people that are in the same as I said to you earlier, that will message me on DMs and just say, oh, I love what you do, and I will always be very open to giving them the helping hand. I think that's so important in this industry, because you know, it sometimes feels like competition, but without the competition, I think the Latin for competition is to conspire together. So without that, you're nothing, aren't you?
No, I think just that you rest on your laurels and you don't learn, you don't move, you know, and I think also the reason why I wanted to do this episode is that when we're booking people, we are booking people because we're assuming that they know what they're doing, right? Yeah. You 100% do. I 100% do. So I know when somebody buys their dress from me, I've got them. Okay, and I'm looking out. Half my job is
you will
looking at shipping.
Probably know when someone comes in, like from their body type and the way that they move, what sort of dress is good for them.
But the background stuff, it's stuff like shipping. It's the coordination of the factories. You know, I know when the Ukraine broke out, I knew what possibilities would impact us, and I had an avenue ready for when it did. So I had all the answers and stuff like that. So but couples are booking people that assume that people know what they're doing. But there are people going to be out there that. Well,
but I've had so many weddings I've had so many weddings that have come in and they've said, we booked X, they've let us down on such and such, or
but that's okay before the wedding. But what if it happens on the wedding? You're stuffed. Yeah, you've got no chance. So we need to give people some tools now that we can say, right, what should we be asking when we're booking? You know, care for our children. What you know, so there's no gaps for error. Yeah. What should we be asking the people?
Okay, so first things first, you need to be honest with how many children are coming. We're in so many weddings and they're like, oh, it's 5 kids, and then like 15 have turned up, but they only wanted to cater for bridal and stuff like that. So
can't shortcut that, by the way. Can't say, I'll just smuggle a few in.
No, because again, it's safety. And look, with us, any children that are older the age, it's absolutely fine. And what we do say is, and this is the thing, often people think that babies, you can just have one person or something. And I often, overnight care, and they say, oh, there's just 3 kids. And I said, well, look, I have to have 2 nannies on that, because if one child has an accident or is kicking off or is unsettled, that nanny can't leave. And let's just say some venues, you've got no Wi-Fi. We can't get in hold of the parent. So for safety, and then sometimes when people push and say, well, no, I'll just say, look, we're not the supplier for you, because I'm not going to compromise on your child's safety and on my staff safety.
I'm the same. I will actually turn down ordering a wedding dress to somebody because there's just not enough gap in there for a failure if there is a delay in customs.
Yeah, because you just don't want to leave yourself open to that. So a supplier, I think, a supplier that's asking you questions, as opposed to you asking them questions. If you inquire with somebody, even if it's just a friend of a nanny or whoever it is, or, you know, your nursery worker at the school or whatever, but if you're going with a legitimate company, they should be asking you the basic stuff, which is obviously your date, your times or whatever, but how many children, are there any medical needs, are there any SEN needs, the timings, who is going to be your likely contact, and also the expectations on the day. So for example, we've got a wedding coming up where some brides are really forthcoming, and they'll give you, you know, they kind of micromanage a bit, and they'll say, look, this is happening, we want, and literally.
Well, they've listened to the programme.
Yeah.
And they've gone, right.
Yeah, what do I ask? Yeah. But we had one bride, and I was actually quite impressed, and I thought, it feels harsh on paper, but I actually like it. She said the timeline was like this. She was like, look, leaving for the ceremony here. No. Pre-breakfasting, kids welcome. Leaving for ceremony, kids not welcome, bold.
Excellent.
Yeah, back for reception, kids welcome. Wedding breakfast, kids not welcome, bold. You know what I mean? So it's giving that expectation.
Brilliant. And it's short, it's
parents.
sharp. You can't, it's
but of course.
Because if you're like me, I'm started here and then I'm down here. Yeah. So that's short and
I
sharp.
always say important. That to couples, is that express what you expect from, you know, your day, because it's that age-old thing, isn't it, where people say, you know, you've got so-and-so's in a mood because you've decided to have a child-free wedding, and they're like, oh, what do you mean? Da, da, da. But again, it's your day, your way, that whole thing, right? But and then we've been at weddings, and the couple have been so kind to bring in the 90% of the time, guests are so thankful that you've done that thing for them, because they're like, oh my God, I can drink and have fun. So we've had on occasion weddings where you've got, you know, a bit of an ungrateful guest and they've been, kids have sat on they've sat on their own kids' table, they've got their whole thing, we've got set up, and then, you know, the mum or auntie, whoever the carers will come in and say, well, I'm not happy that they're not sat with me. I want them sat with me, and we'll literally take a whole chair, table. And you can imagine how beautiful wedding settings are. But we can't effectively say,
we tackle them at the door. Take them down.
Yeah, exactly. So we just try to politely say, so I always say to brides, translate, be really transparent.
If you've got that checklist in bold, and actually this is from the bride.
Yep. And this was something that I introduced this year. I actually, even before anyone's even booked us, when they book us, I get their information, but ahead of even getting any information, I have an automatic send out, which is our wedding childcare top tips and a childcare checklist. And this looks like all the things you kind of need to check off. Yeah. And that's a free download on our website, so anyone can get that.
There we go. Well, he was waving loads of arms at me, so we've got to round up.
We've talked too much.
Fantastic. So at the end, we're going to ask where can we find you.
Yeah.
But everything will be on the website anyway, and on YouTube too. What's new for you for next year?
New for us is so many fabulous events. I'm seeing a lot of overnight weekend retreats. I'm working with some, longers, which I love them. They sound more glamorous than they are, but again, my team are amazing. We've got some really fun stuff happening. We've got some stuff happening in Marbella, south of France. I've got a really cool Christmas thing happening next year, which is 26, but loads of stuff. Yeah,
we are in 26. It's New Year's special.
Can you believe? Can you believe? I'm still 18, so I'm still in
Same. And our industry definitely is, going in for a big shake-up as well. And, we're having to step up and our fabrics have got to get better. Our cuts have got to get better. Our construction have got to get better because, there is off-peg, sort of
Yes.
easy reach stuff, but is not the same quality. It looks the same, right? But it's not. And so we're striving to get get items in place that will last 12 hours.
Yeah.
That won't last a couple of hours just for your photo shoot.
Yeah.
It's going to, they are.
And I think when you see a good dress, it's a good dress,
Yeah.
But I'm excited for 26.
Yeah, same. I've got a lot of stuff happening.
Yay.
Stuff I can't talk about.
Next time.
Next time, definitely.
Tell me after the show.
I think I've already told you.
You did.
But some other things I can't tell anybody, But so there's lots planned.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited because I think this year has been a lot. 2025 has been people going, I've got the money. But if the government pull their finger out and change the law, it's going to bring more weddings out there, because people aren't getting married because they can't afford it.
Yeah.
And I think these changes are going to be fantastic. So if you are getting married in 2026 and you planned it last year, do go back and check with all your suppliers that everything is still the same. Check the laws out there as well, because there's nothing worse of like going ahead with your wedding and on the day going, no, we can't do that anymore because so and so in Parliament changed this. Documents. Make sure that your documents are up to date. Making sure the suppliers' liability insurance is up to date. Because a lot of them renew in January,
annually.
Don't they? So lots of checklists. But go to your website. Where can we find you?
Little Wedding Creche. You can find us easily on Google. We should be on the first page. So just type in Little Wedding Creche or any sort of social media. Or check out our video on Wedding Mayhem and link will follow.
Exactly. And download that PDF. Is it PDF?
Yeah, download. Pop over to our website. And again, on our website, you can get, if you're even going to another supplier, safeguarding policies, procedures, so you know what to get. But yeah, you can download a free checklist and wedding pre-top tips.
Yeah, can't cut lives. Shortcuts to lives.
No.
What am I trying to say? You can't cut
down lives. You can't shortcut lives. Yeah.
That's one for Tom. Yeah, there's no shortcut to life. So you've got to be careful. And our children are precious, right?
Yes.
So thank you so much for coming back week in, week out. Oh my God, I forgot to say, we hit 5 million.
Yay! Happy New Year!
Last week, but yeah. I mean, 5 million, right? So when you came in, I think we were only like 1 million or something. It's
that's insane. That's insane.
Absolutely mental.
Yeah.
So, and that's down to you guys.
That's so good.
Thank you so much. Like, rate, subscribe, comment. And if you're looking for a wedding dress, come and see me at Love Me Do Brides. And we'll see you all again next week.
Bye!